Now, I'm pretty sure almost everyone already heard about this thing called fundamental paper education. However, though, I gave it some thought and I realized, how can the COD Zombies perks help someone in that situation? And so I'm here now, here to explain and justify on why these perks are either helpful or not. Also, keep in mind, I'm only doing the teachers. However, though, I will include the students if the situation permits. Alright, we got the appropriate tier names, now let's get to this shit. Now, first up is Quick Revive. Now, it's going to be a very useful perk, 100% required for this situation, and for good reason. It essentially just lets you get back up. It basically revives you, it self-revives you, if you don't have a buddy. But then again, it's co-op ability. If you have a buddy or a friend in this school, and he needs some help, he probably needs to get revived. Maybe, hopefully, maybe so. However, though, it makes them revive faster, so maybe you can help your buddy faster. But it's mostly just gonna be good for its solo ability. It's gonna revive you, so it's really 100% needed. And Juggernog is also 100% required. It essentially increases in the game. It increases health from 3 to 5 hits. To 5 hits from 3 hits. And translate that to this scenario. The attacks from the teachers are going to do damage, but it's going to take a lot more to get you down, basically, so it's still useful in that regard. Double tap 1, however, is going to be a meh, because for good reason. Not because it's double tap 1 in this scenario, it's because it's this scenario. Well, if that makes any sense. But there's really no bullet weapons. But then again, makeshift weapons exist, such as like a crossbow maybe, or a bow from like rubber bands and shit. But that can only do so much, so yeah. Speed colon one hand is going to be good for a whole reason entirely, because it's going to be good enough for a whole reason. Not because it reloads things faster, it's because that in the game, in COD, it repairs things faster, such as the boards, and the board/barriers from the windows. So that means you can probably barricade a door pretty fast with this thing. So that means it could be good enough to do that, but other than that, it's just going to be there. Stamina up, however, is 100% required. The teachers can run pretty fast, it shows in the animation, and you need to keep on running. Stamina up increases speed by 7% and increases stamina length. So obviously it's pretty nice to have. PhD Flopper, however, is sort of a useless thing. The school doesn't really have an elevated ground. It technically has the pool area where it can be elevated, but then again, you're not really going to be in the pool area that much, because even though upon flopping, if you fall enough from a high enough place, you make an explosion. However, though, other than the pool area, there's really not many places where it's high enough, because it needs to be high enough. And also, being immune to explosives is not that useful, because none of the teachers really have an explosive ability, not even Alice. So it's going to be pretty bad in that regard. Same with Deadshot Daiquiri in some regard too. Unless... Actually, I'm going to move it up 1. Just 1, though. Mainly because, again, you could probably make a crossbow or something out of, like, the school supplies. However, though, it's going to be limited, and you probably have limited bolts, too. So, like, yeah. Mule Kick, another useless thing, unless if you have, like, any guns going in here. But then again, I already said the rules being no guns, no spawning guns, or anything like that. Tombstone is going to be a meh. Now, the concept for Tombstone in this regard, though, is going to be pretty confusing, because it's obvious that they don't come back. So, actually, now that I say that, I'm going to put this down here to useless. Because they don't come back, and Tombstone only works if that you can respawn, so you can reclaim your stuff. But then again, even if that was the case, they really don't have any stuff to begin with. So, yeah. Who's Who, on the other hand, is pretty good to have, because, well, what it does is that if you die or go down in game, like in Zombies, if you go down, you need to revive yourself with a starting pistol. However, though, it's pretty bad in COD Zombies because, well, it's on die rise. But in this scenario, it's actually pretty nice to have because you have a second chance at life still. So, but it's essentially just like a watered down quick revive, essentially. But I think you only have the same amount of time you have to revive yourself, like if you're on co-op. So you have to be really careful and be quick. Vulture's Aid is also a pretty good one to have, and I'll put it above Who's Who. Now, ammo drops could be phenomenal because, like, ammo could be anything. It could be bolts / arrows for that makeshift crossbow I was yapping about earlier. Extra points, I'm not sure what that can do for this scenario. But what's the big factor, though, is the green mist. And that pretty much hides you from everything, from the enemy. So therefore, the teachers are going to have a pretty tough time finding you. However, though, the green mist only spawns in on enemies. And that may or may not include students. But I'm sorry, not sorry. If a student has the green mist for me to hide in, I'm beating the shit out of that guy. Double Tap 2.0, I'm going to put it above Double Tap in the good enough tier. Because it doubles damage towards ranged weapons. So therefore, if anything can make a makeshift crossbow, it can probably feel like it has two. It felt like you shot two at the same time. So that's going to be pretty good. Electric Cherry, when reloading anything, let it be crossbow or anything, it'll emit an electric charge that will stun nearby enemies. And I'll put it in the top of good enough tier. Because stunning is going to be pretty good. But here's the thing. You're not really going to have that much access to ranged weaponry unless you can build it yourself. But then again, as I already said, there's just so limited items. And there may not even be rubber bands in the first place. Blaze Phase is a meh. But it'll go on top of meh for good reason. And that is like the shoot ability. You can just shoot through, crouch for a bit, shoot through, and you can be free. But that's pretty much where the pros stop and the cons begin. It takes a little bit too much time for the charge to charge up. Depth perception, see enemies through walls is actually kind of a good enough thing. But it's going to go below Electric Cherry, but will be above Speed Cola because if the teachers are nearby, you can see their outline with this perk. So therefore, you can avoid them a little bit easier. Bloodwolf Bite is going to be a good enough thing as well. It'll be on top of Double Tap, above Double Tap 2. It spawns in a wolf that will attack nearby enemies. So therefore, a wolf will come in and attack the teachers attacking you for a bit. But I think it's only for around 30 seconds or so, but it's still kind of good. An Ethereal Razor increases melee damage of all sorts. I'll put it on the bottom of pretty good to have, but you're not going to have access to that many weapons, so it's not going to be that entirely useful, but it is incredibly useful, though, if a melee weapon is acquired, such as a baton, a makeshift baton, anything that you can hit with. Stone Cold Stronghold is going to be top of meh, because it's still a pretty good kind of perk to have. Actually, I'm going to put it on the bottom of good enough. It's still a pretty good perk to have in all regards. But despite all that, though, it increases damage as long as you're in the area of the circle. It increases damage as long as you're standing in one place. And you need to keep on moving and moving and moving in this scenario. So it's not going to be that useful, but it is going to be good enough to have if you want to hold out for a bit. Bandolier Bandit, bottom of meh. You may or may not get more ammo, may or may not get more arrows or bolts or anything for a makeshift crossbow, bow, or anything like that. But it's just meh. Zomshell is just basically a watered down Vulture's Aid right here, but it doesn't really mean it's below Vulture's Aid or anything like that. It's still a decent thing to have because it has the exact same concept of Vulture Aid as its modifier, essentially. But even then, it's still bottom of pretty good to have, but it's still kind of alright. To have, anyway. Next up, Time Slip. which is going to be useless. Now, you can make the argument that maybe they can open doors faster because time slip makes, in Black Ops 4, makes the box spin faster, makes PAP spit out your gun faster. So maybe it just like lets you open doors faster to let you escape teachers more faster, maybe. I'm not sure though, but it is kind of useless. But it'll be top of useless. Victorious Tortoise is pretty good to have. When holding out any sort of shield of any kind, it'll have 360 protection, and when that shield breaks, it'll create a little explosion for you to get out of, which is incredible. Like, imagine being cornered by all the teachers, and then they try to break the shield. You have 360 protection no matter what. And if they break it, it'll explode, so you can have more time to get out of there. So yeah. PhD Slider. It's top of meh. Pretty good concept as long as you slide into something or into the enemy, they explode. But you're not going to be in a scenario where you're always going to slide. Winter's Wail is 100% required. In fact, I'll put this above Stamina Up. What Winter's Wail does is that it'll have 3 charges, and what it does with those 3 charges is that it emits ice around the area, an ice storm, a mini ice storm around you if you get hit by melee damage and only melee damage, like hitting or anything like that. And they'll stay frozen for a few seconds, therefore you have nothing but time to get out. So it'll be very, very useful. Next up is Dying Wish. I'm going to put this at the top of 100% required. Dying Wish on your last dying breath. It'll make you invincible for around 9 seconds, therefore you have only nothing but time. And when the invincibility runs out, you start healing as fast as you can. So applying that to this scenario, you turn invincible, you get away, and your body starts healing wounds as fast as it can, so it is 1000% required. Elemental Pop, random AT, unless you have that makeshift crossbow I'm yapping about, it's going to be bottom of good enough tier. Maybe you can get Shatter Blast or something, but yeah. Finally, Widow's Wine. It's going to be above Stamina Up. Stamina Up. Yeah, sorry. Nah, screw it. But what Widow's Wine does is that it has 4 charges, and once you get hit, just like Winter's Wail, except with webs, they'll be stuck entirely. However, though, you can also throw them in the form of Semtex grenades, and you can still stick them. However, though, you still need to replenish them somehow. I'm not sure if they drop Widow's Wine grenade drops, I'm not sure. But this is the tier list for perks against fundamental education of paper against the teachers. Alright, bye. Yeah, this is about it. See ya.